the Bible. There are numerous reasons why we know the Bible gives us accurate and specific information about God. Number 1, transmissional reliability. Number 2, historical reliability. Number 3, miracles. Number 4, prophecy. Number 5, the resurrection of Christ. Number 1, transmissional reliability. The science of textual criticism is engaged in by Christians and non-Christians alike. This science is applied to all ancient literature, not just the Bible. In the Bible I own, the Old Testament is about 800 pages in length and the New is about 150. According to biblical scholar Norman Geisler, textual critics have reconstructed the original text of the Bible with the exception of what amounts to 3 pages of the New Testament and 50 of the Old Testament. It is important to note that these 3 and 50 pages contain discrepancies of spelling and grammar. There are no significant doctrines of Christianity or significant doctrines about God in these pages. And of course, they're not consecutive pages. You shift all the errors onto one page, and that makes up 3 or 50 pages. For the reconstructed text is readily available, so all interested viewers can check this out for themselves. For the New Testament, you will want to check what is called the Nestle-Aland 27th edition. The first point, transcriptional or transmissional reliability, does not tell us that the Bible is accurate information about God. Rather, all it tells us is that the Bible we have today is more or less identical to the original Bible. Point number 2, historical reliability. The Bible is commonly regarded by historians in general as generally reliable when it comes to history. By generally reliable is not meant that every detail is absolutely unquestionable, but that if we read, for example, about a particular king fighting a particular battle in a particular location, we can be reasonably sure that event took place. That kind of thing. The general historical reliability is demonstrated through various ways. Archaeology comes into play here, also comparing the writings of other historians like Josephus to the historians of the Bible, the writers of the Bible. Most Bibles have some maps in the back. These maps are of actual locations described in the Bible which you can physically visit today. So if the Bible is a reliable source of history, what it tells us about God's dealings in history should be generally reliable as well. Sometimes historians qua historians shall eschew speaking of anything supernatural or dealing directly with God. But this is an arbitrary and unnecessary assumption for what the Enlightenment historian or the modernist historian might call religion cannot enter into history. It's arbitrary that they would have that methodology. If we have a reliable source of information, we should trust what that source is telling us, even if it is talking about events not strictly natural. Number 3, in the world of the Bible, the primary function of miracle was to validate the message of the miracle worker. It is God's way of saying, quote, "When this miracle worker speaks for me, trust what he or she says," unquote. So the prophets and apostles who wrote the Bible are portrayed therein as miracle workers, and since the Bible presents generally reliable history, we should tend to believe these miracle accounts. But it is the miracles which validate the prophet or apostle as giving an accurate account of God and his actions. But don't all religions claim miracles, and thus one religion's miracle claims cancel out biblical miracle claims? A couple of thoughts here on this point before moving on to the next point. First, the Bible is regarded as generally reliable history. I know of no other putative sacred text which is seriously taken as being historically reliable by non-adherents to the respective faith. The Book of Mormon, for example, is believed to be reliable history by Mormons, but when was the last time you saw a museum display about the history of the Book of Mormon, read an article in National Geographic about the Book of Mormon, the historical events allegedly taking place therein, or learned about a military campaign in a secular college history course from the Book of Mormon? Second, The theistic proofs of classical apologetics we looked at earlier prove that a theistic God exists. In the marketplace of ideas, who might this theistic God be? The main candidates are Allah and Yahweh. Any miracles the Jews appeal to would be primarily from the Old Testament, and Christians accept those miracle claims. Or better, the claims are just miracle claims for the Old Testament within the Bible. For Islam, the primary miracle claim is the Quran itself. Within the Quran, then, there really aren't any miracle claims. I mean, an account of a miracle performed by Muhammad to establish him as a true prophet of God. So theism must be true according to the ontological and cosmological arguments and so on. There are no miracle claims in the Quran. This leaves theistic miracle claims only in the Old and New Testaments, or the Bible. So we need only concern ourselves with biblical miracle claims, and there are such claims. Thus, the rebuttal about miracle claims from other religions is successfully diffused. To conclude, we know the Bible is a reliable source of specific information about God because its authors performed miracles to validate what they were saying. Number 4, prophecy. Within the Bible, there is history written in advance. If the Bible were merely the word of men, there is no way they could have accurately written what would later happen. A similar rebuttal arises against Bible prophecy as arises against miracles in general. People that aren't Christians have predicted the future too, we're told, so that cancels out any evidential value for biblical prophecy. Well, in addition to my response under point number 3, I can add a couple of thoughts here. First, where do we find prophecy in context antithetical to putative theistic scripture? We find it outside of theism, of course. But this is normally in the context of a fortune teller. Fortune telling is very different from genuine prophecy. A fortune teller is either a scam artist trying to make a quick buck, or they may actually believe what they are saying. So most of the time, if not all the time, non-theistic prediction is with fortune tellers. But if they believe what they are saying, these fortune tellers, they will either make a certain percentage of false predictions, or their predictions will be so vague as to be able to be twisted to mean anything. Nostradamus' prediction of Hitler comes to mind here. It is far from clear that Nostradamus himself had Hitler in mind in that passage, or even knew such a person as Hitler would ever live. When we come to the Bible, though, we see a remarkable difference. For one thing, the Bible predicts specific events long before they take place. For another, the prophets themselves taught that a self-professing prophet, if he ever prophesied an event which did not occur, that prophet was to be immediately killed. Prophecies have to be comprehensible if it can be clear whether one's life is forfeit or no. And we'll look at a couple specific examples of Bible prophecy in the next video. Thank you.